Hey guys, Scott Fishman here with a great guest. He has a big matchup coming up November 20th. It's the Don Julio Tequila show with MLW. Donovan Dijak, how are you today?
I am doing excellent. How are you?
I'm good. And I see you have one half of the MLW World Tag Team Championship, of course, with Bishop Dyer. What do you've been in MLW for a good amount right now. Kind of how do you reflect on your experience so far as this brand continues to grow and evolve?
Been absolutely tremendous. I mean, the word used right there, growth, right? That's exactly what we're going for right now in MLW and achieving, over and over again. It seems like in the, I guess I started in September, October, November, so I guess I've been there about 14 months now. And in that time, the progress towards more shows, more territories, more platforms that we're going to be presenting on, and also the collaboration that we've had, like you mentioned, the tequila brand, and you also there's also the collaboration that was just not announced, but just it just came out, right? The Panini deal with the card sets that are going to be not going to be are now currently as of I think what day is today? The 6th. So I guess yesterday, 2 days ago.
Mhm.
Um, so now the cards are going to be in not go I keep saying going to be. The cards are in stores right now.
I'm losing track of what day it is too, so don't worry about
I right, listen,
that.
it all kind of blurs together. But
Yeah.
yeah, these deals keep popping up, and it's incredible. The talent that we continue to secure is continuing to grow the brand in a tremendous direction, and I'm very excited for all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this show arguably is one of the most star-studded stacked cards when it comes to names that MLW has had. So it shows the investment that Court Bauer and the others with MLW are putting into this company because they see the momentum, they see it building, and through yourself and Bishop. Um, how about just I spoke to Bishop about this, about your tag team, and we were talking about the big man and then how over time the evolution of it seems like it got kind of lost. The airport test, the presentation, the just the impressiveness of
Yeah.
especially with two of you together. I mean, talk about how you guys have come together and maybe the bond that was formed and shared, because when you put a tag team together you never know how things are going to work, and it seems to be working pretty well for you.
Yeah, no, it's going tremendous. He's obviously outstanding. And this is the continuation of, you know, his reinvention of himself in the same way, in the same process that I've reinvented myself, right? There was this perception of both of us, especially as sort of main roster members on WWE programming. There was a real perception to both of us, and I think that kind of lends into what you were first alluding to, which is this perception of the big man in professional wrestling, which quite frankly was pretty deserved over the course of the 90s and the early 2000s, right? Which isn't to take away from some of the great big man workers that are out there, the Undertaker and JBL, or I mean, these are some of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But for every one of those there was like 10, just big lumbering kind of can't do much, less is more types, which
Right.
is I never liked the saying less is more. I much prefer the saying that I took from a close friend of mine, Tommaso Ciampa, and he says get more out of less. And I've always subscribed to that both as a wrestler and a trainer, which because to me that doesn't imply I'm just not going to do anything. Oh, I'm big, I'm not going to do anything. It implies that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to get a lot out of it, right? Which I
Hmm.
think should be the mindset. I think that's the mindset of Bishop Dyer. I think that's the mindset of myself, right? We're not these big lumbering guys who just go, "Ah, we're big, we're not going to do anything." We still do all the exciting maneuvers and moments and all the different components of professional wrestling. So I think that is kind of the test now in 2025, where the bar is so high, right? And it almost seems like a bar that's unachievable for big men, right? You need to You need to have these, these high octane matches. But I think both he and I have proved over the course of our career, certainly over the the past 3 or 4 years of our career, that we can both meet and exceed that level that smaller wrestlers are doing just as effectively. We proved that in our run in NXT in the white and gold era of it. And now we're proving it now as the skyscrapers in MLW, right? There's even though we're big men, we're still going to meet and exceed the match of the nights and the match of the years of the card and of the entire pro wrestling landscape. And that's our goal, and that's going to continue to be our goal.
And I love the fact that MLW, is a current product, but I think it pulls on the foundation of old school fundamentals in a
Mhm.
sense of you talk about the skyscrapers, how you all are presented, and then Saint Laurent and as it building the heat and the response and the presentation. I mean, how is it for you to kind of see that side of things still, what's old is new again and what worked back then can work right now in today's landscape?
So I think MLW is an outstanding representation of kind of what both myself and Bishop Dyer stand for, which is this wonderful mix of, like you mentioned, old school sort of fundamentals and mentality based with this sort of high octane car crash, sort of anything goes approach, right? And I think that's the beauty of MLW is you're getting a product and a presentation completely unlike anything else in the pro wrestling market, on the pro wrestling landscape, right? We're completely independent of these huge, multi-billion dollar companies. And because of that, it gives us the freedom to do things that nobody else is doing, right? To do things like electrify someone in an electric chair, or go through off of these these aren't things that we are doing yet, but just when you watch the product, it's a bit of a car crash, also combined with some of the best fundamental professional wrestling on planet Earth. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I spoke to Doc Gallows about your match that's
Mhm.
coming up November 20th. A tag team match that he saw what you guys were doing, and we wanted to see this match, the Good Brothers versus you guys.
Mhm.
Talk about what it's like to have another big name tag team coming in here and building the tag team division, which is not an easy thing, as we've seen over decades in other companies where things would build momentum and then it would stop, start, and we'd have a great moments and then
Sure.
it'd go back again. And this could be, another shot in the arm for MLW when it comes to the tag team scene.
Absolutely. And I think what's going to make us stand out a lot from, what a lot of other companies are doing with their tag team divisions is that we have the size and the experience to put on, some of the best spectacle as well as technical as well as, explosive tag team matches possible, right? There's nowhere else in the world where you're going to get a tag team match with three guys who are all, 6'7" or taller, 260 pounds or bigger, right? That just doesn't exist in today's pro wrestling landscape. 20 years ago, it was every other match, but they were all, not very good matches. So with exceptions, right? I'm a huge fan of the original Skyscrapers, the original Brothers of Destruction, things like that. So I'm not going to say every big man was terrible, right? These are guys that I modeled my entire career after. But I'd be remiss to not, speak about the fact that most big men were not the greatest in-ring professional wrestlers on earth. But
Yeah.
with the skyscrapers, with the Good Brothers, you are getting that, right? And you're getting it in modern times when that's become more and more of a rarity and more of a commodity. So if you want to see if that's your style, if that's your cup of tea, then MLW is the only place on earth where you're going to get that. And I think that that's tremendous for us, and that's tremendous for the crowd as well.
And I think for all of you who have gone through the WWE process, I think it's almost you almost like have a chip on your shoulders when it comes to like because when you leave WWE, it's like, okay, their time may have passed. They're just WWE guys just collecting a paycheck. But from what I'm gathering, especially in this era, I'm finding is the passion is still there, the drive and the motivation is still there, and you still love what you do. And now, thankfully, there's a lot of quality places like MLW where you can apply your trade. So, do you kind of find that this chip on your shoulders that all these 14 months later that you're looking back and saying, look at what I'm doing now, that could have been happening there, but you're giving me, retribution and not letting me talk like I am right now.
Um, no, I don't do anything with the the viewership of what does WWE think about this. That's not my goal. My goal has always been to be the best professional wrestler that I possibly can be, and I've done that. I've done that at every step of my career, whether it was Ring of Honor, whether it was on the Indies, whether it was PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, NXT, Monday Night Raw, right? My second NXT run, and now MLW, CMLL, which is an incredibly huge company that I work for, right? My goal has always been to focus on myself, because if you get bogged down in the world of professional wrestling of worrying about what someone else thinks, what the booker thinks or what this company thinks about what I'm doing, then you're gonna get completely blindsided and sidetracked with that thought process. Because the reality of the pro wrestling business is it's not as much performative based as fans want it to be, right? As much as wrestlers want it to be, right? We all wish and hope that what pro wrestling is it's going to be, oh well, whoever does the best is going to be rewarded as such, right? Because that makes sense, right? That's how football works, that's how basketball works. The best get the championships and things like that. Pro wrestling is a business, right? And business models are different than sports models, right? At the end of the day, timing is a massive factor. Money is the the bottom line, is the ultimate factor, right? So any decision is going to be based on those things before it's going to be based on, how good are you, how well are you doing, right? Which isn't to say that those things are completely irrelevant, right? It is a factor, but pro wrestling is a huge pie chart, right? So if you get bogged down in those details and worrying about what someone else thinks about me, then you're just going to get completely lost in the shuffle. So no, I only focus on myself, and right now for myself, MLW is the complete focus, because they're investing in me, so I'm going to reciprocate that to them tenfold.
Hmm. And just from an interesting side to this is being a professional wrestler is it's you're making your money, your livelihood on that. I'm curious, what was the process and the evolution in the last year? I mean, it's a scary time when you're on the other side and you have
Hmm.
family to feed. I mean, how is that? How is the family? I think a part is having the support of the family and also doing what's right for them as well. But how did you
Yep.
kind of weather through that?
Well, the good news for me is that my family, specifically my wife and my two children, they are they're completely on board with whatever decision that I make, right? And sometimes the decisions aren't mine to make, right? Like I was very public about WWE taking that decision out of my hands. And that's again, they're a business. So I'm not angry about that or resentful. I understand that they make business decisions. That's how businesses work, and they're obviously making a ton of money with their business decisions. So I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, you make a horrible decisions and I'm going to make you regret it." No, that's not how business works, right?
Right.
So for me and my family, obviously in terms of my passion, right? Being in the ring and wrestling is my passion. And I was very fortunate in my time in WWE, even when I was on the main roster, right? When I was out of sight, out of mind, I was still wrestling pretty much every week on a show called Main Event. So for me, that's like my happy place, right? The bell rings and I'm in the ring in front of a crowd, and that's where I want to be. Um, but then there's the business side of things where it's like I want to be on television, I want to be promoting my brand, I want to be showing more people so I can, be a bigger draw and make more income. So all of that sort of mixes into the pot. And then, when you have to, make these decisions based on, going from one company to another company and going to becoming an independent worker and things like that, my family puts their full trust in me to be a provider for them, right? And I'm going to continue to do so. It doesn't matter what happens to me. That's always going to be my number one priority, and they know that my daughter's 5 years old, my son's 8 years old, so that they don't fully understand the business and the economics of it, but they know that daddy's going to keep them safe, and daddy's going to keep them well fed and protected, and I'm going to give them all the things they need no matter what. It doesn't matter what I have to do. That's always going to be my number one priority, and my wife understands that as well, and they trust me to be able to do that for them, and that's always what I'm going to be able to do. But I'm going to do it through the opportunities that are presented with me. And right now, MLW is that number one opportunity.
And bringing championships home for them to play with, right? That's also something that they.
My daughter is a big fan of championship belts. Yes, she is a big fan of playing with them. And I put a lot of fun, videos on social media now. My daughter sort of cosplaying me. It's funny because my kids don't really care for the wrestling. A lot of wrestlers have this like origin story of like, oh, when I was 5 years old, I loved watching professional wrestling, or my dad always watched professional wrestling. My kid, I'm like, hey, you guys want to watch wrestling? They're like, no, absolutely not. I think to them, wrestling is like dad's work, and they don't really like that because work takes me away from them.
Hmm.
Uh, but they do like the showmanship and the pageantry of it, and a little bit of the physicality. But once I'm like, hey, you want to watch a match? They're like, no, we do not. We'd rather watch,
Paw
you know,
Patrol.
Paw Patrol, or I think Bluey is
Bluey.
a
I was gonna say Bluey. Yeah, that's a
for
big thing.
both of them right now.
Donnie
Yeah,
Gargano would be happy for that.
yeah,
Um, but as they get older, you never know. As they get more understanding about it.
sure.
Curious, because he's in the news right now, and you've been through the WWE process. Ridge Holland has been going through a rough time right now. What's
Mhm.
kind of your perspective and your advice to him as he's kind of, he's in a rough spot because he's injured and he's not able to provide for himself, but
Yeah,
also just the way things have went with him and his contract. We don't know the legalities, of course, but from just the
sure.
stepping stone of being on the other side and him kind of thinking about what his next move is going to be, and you've proven it like others have that there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel on the other side. What do you want to say to him, and what do you think make of everything? His exit. He's had a rough time throughout his whole WWE career. It seems in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, Luke is in a tough spot. I mean, fortunately for me, knock on wood, I've never been in that specific position, so I don't have like exact advice for him, like one-to-one advice, because like again, I'm getting, these secondhand reports just like everybody else, so I don't know how much of it is true, or I mean, I assume he's not lying. So I saw his post, and I believe,
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
yeah, I believe what he's saying, which is obviously not a good spot to be in. It's a spot that, quite frankly, I think about for myself, sometimes, in that I'm an independent contractor right now, and I have no guaranteed contracts. I have no guaranteed money or anything like that. So if I get injured, like I was training at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy last night, because, like I said, this is my passion. Being in the ring is my passion. And if I tear my ACL, again, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if I do, in training last night, like I'm not going to be able to make my booking on Saturday. I have a booking in the South on Saturday, then I have a booking in Mexico on Sunday with a co-promotion with CMLL. So obviously I can't do those if I have a torn ACL. So like then it becomes, then that again, that number one question creeps up again. How do I provide for my family? I mean, the answer is we've got to figure out a way to figure it out, right? And that's not for me to, throw shade at Luke. He's a smart dude, and he's a friend of mine, so I know he's going to figure it out. Um, it's unfortunately, these pro wrestling contracts, as much as we don't want to admit it, they're a bit of a gamble, right? That you're kind of rolling the dice and hoping that it works out for you. And sometimes it works out great. There's a lot of people making a ton of money in WWE and being featured very well, and sometimes it doesn't. And for me, fortunately, right, I never looked past how fortunate I was in my WWE run, both health wise and both in terms of how long I was there, and the presentation I was given, and the fact that when my contract ended, I could wrestle right away. I was very thankful for all of those things. So Luke, unfortunately, is in a position right now where he can't do some of those things. Right, I think he's out for another 6 or 7 months. So that's not a great spot to be in. But I do know that Luke is an unbelievable wrestler. He's incredibly talented. And I know that he's going to find a way, especially after those 7 months, to get back in the ring and perform at a high level and bring that income to his family. And the great part is that there's places for him to do that, right? And there's lots of options and lots of great opportunities for him. And he did have, a run where he is a recognizable name as a professional wrestler at this point in his career. So obviously he's got, some huge hurdles to overcome, especially over the course of the next 7 months. But I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to do that because he's a very perseverant individual and he's a very smart individual. And I know he loves and cares for his family very much. So I know he's going to, he's going to persevere.
Yeah, so much respect to you and the other independent wrestlers that I mean, people don't realize you're doing it's a very do it yourself sort of thing where you're making your
Absolutely.
bookings. You have to figure out the logistics of how you're going to get from one booking to another booking,
Yep.
the business side of things. That's a whole full-time job in itself. And just the way
Absolutely.
that you guys maneuver it, I think is just an incredible thing where others in other lines of the entertainment business, they have booker like people have agents within wrestling too, but there's
Sure.
still that other part of it that I just think is incredible that you guys are able to do that. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so, but it's from the fans' perspective, that's why it's so important to support other companies like an MLW because
Mhm.
you want to, rising tides, lift all ships, and you want all these ships to be successful and healthy.
Absolutely.
That's why I don't understand when people like the fans are trying to like make it, downplay a particular promotion, draw on the negativity of it because they don't realize everything is a part of important in this marketplace. So, yeah, thanks for putting that into perspective. I really appreciate it. And
Yep.
from your standpoint, just kind of let people know, I know you're a busy guy. You mentioned, some fun content that you put on. What do you want? How do you want people to follow you, and what are you most excited about next besides the show coming up?
Sure. So everything I do is posted pretty publicly and pretty frequently on my social media stuff, which is I use mostly Twitter and Instagram, and they're both at Dijak FYE standing for Feast Your Eyes. Um, yeah, I mean that's a lot of what I do. I do some smaller streams and stuff on Whatnot, which is going well for me right now, and I do low-priced cameos if you want to grab a cameo. I also run an online pro wrestling school where you can learn the psychology of professional wrestling just like you and I are doing right now on a Zoom chat, and that's available at dijakwrestling.com. And like I mentioned, I'm also a trainer at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. So yeah, it's like, as an independent contractor, you kind of wear a lot of hats. It's like Monday I'm doing this, Tuesday I'm doing this, Thursday I'm traveling here, Friday I'm going to Mexico. It's there's all these different things that you need to balance. But that's the beauty of it is that now I have the opportunity to do all those things, whereas a year and a half ago I couldn't do a lot of those things, or certainly not to this level. So yeah, if you want to check out the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, that's neprowrestling.com. I'm a trainer there every Wednesday nights if you want to learn from me in ring, and if you want to save $500 on that, you can sign up for my 8-week course at dijakwrestling.com, and that'll save you $500 on in ring training with me. So yeah, lots of options, lots of busy things to do. Today's a busy day as well in terms of today's one of those days like you mentioned where I got to put my managerial hat on, and I have to sort out all the logistics because I have
Wow.
flights coming up and travel and rental cars. And then as a pro wrestler, as an independent pro wrestler, you're always looking, about 6 months out. So I got to look at
Wow.
what's my March look like, what's my April look like, how do I sort that, how do I put these people in contact in terms of collaboration, things like that. So today's one of those days for me. So
Whew.
so that's what I'm
And then
doing
I don't
today.
even know what happens when tax season comes around for you guys. Oh my God. I feel like you guys got to be holed up in a room for hours
So
trying to figure it out.
So luckily for me, my wife is much better with finances and computers than I am. But also for us, luckily there's a gentleman who's an accountant who worked closely with a lot of the wrestlers in NXT Black and Gold, and thankfully he doesn't just throw you away when you leave WWE. So we do have a tax guy and an accountant guy who's very familiar with the world of professional wrestling. So he helps us greatly on that front as well because there's all sorts of things, right? As an
Yeah.
independent contractor, because with WWE you are by law, you're an independent contractor. So that's where he comes in terms of figuring out, where those deductibles are and things like that. And that becomes even more relevant as a, on the road, separate from WWE independent
Yeah.
contractor, where all of those expenses, become, multiplied tenfold, and you got to really figure out the P's and Q's of it. So he's excellent at that.
Man, that's a story. We gotta link up with that guy. I bet he has some stories. Um,
I he definitely does. Yeah.
uh, thank you, Donovan Dijak, for the time. Really appreciate it. Everyone, check out MLW Don Gato Tequila Live Wrestling Special November 20th. If
Mhm.
you're not able to make it in Charleston, South Carolina, but tickets start at $15, you can catch it on beIN Sports and then YouTube, and then you can catch the Skyscrapers versus the Good Brothers, which is a tag team match that I'm sure will be pretty exciting to check out. So, and maybe the first chapter in many between this, maybe tag team rivalry we're seeing kick off.
So,
Yeah, thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.